thing to look at is the use of title cards and the colors, how he uses those in the screenplay. Obviously, you have the title of the film here on page 3. That's like a light purple. And then when we get into the characters and the POV, so if you don't know already, this screenplay and this film is broken up into 6 points of view. On page 5, we get our first one. That's Justine. She is in pink to tell us who she is. This is the beginning of her POV. And it's 26 pages, which is the longest point of view in the screenplay, which makes sense. I mean, without her, there's really no story. And then next on page 31, we go to Archer. He's green. That makes sense since he's the hunter. And he has 15 pages of POV. Then after that, we go to Paul. That's on page 46. He has 12 pages of POV. And he's blue, right? Police officer. That makes sense. Then on page 58, we get Anthony, who is the unhoused petty criminal. He has 14 pages, and he's red. On 72, we get Andrew, the principal, 16 pages for Andrew, and that's in some shade of purple. And you might be saying to yourself, if you watch the film, wait a second, that's not the principal's name. The principal's name is Marcus. That's true. So they changed his name. In the version of the script that I have, at least, it was Andrew. And if you think about why they might do that, you have an Anthony, an Andrew, an Alex. It's a lot of A's. So sometimes it's a good idea to have your main character's name start with different letters, so in your mind you can easily categorize them and remember them. But they didn't do that all the way, because we also have Justine Grandy is the teacher, and she goes by Miss Grandy quite a bit because she's a teacher. And then the main villain is Gladys. So Grandy, Gandy, and Gladys. It's hard to even say. It can get confusing on the page. So but they stuck with that. Then on page 88, we get our final POV. That's Alex, the young boy, and he gets 20 pages, which is the second most to Justine. And he's some form of light purple. I don't know what all these colors are, but each person has their own individual color, which is pretty neat. And it breaks up the screenplay by POV. There are only 15 pages in the screenplay that aren't part of a single person's POV. You get the 5 in the beginning, where a lot of it's a voiceover, and then 10 at the end, which is sort of the climax of everything that happens. Speaking of naming characters, we talked about many times on the podcast about how if you really want to be nice to your actors, you want to give them a name so that sometimes even if they don't have a line, but they do something significant, so that on IMDb or on their credits, they're not, bartender or whatever. Here he takes a different approach. Alex's parents in the screenplay are mom and dad. And not only are they significant characters in the story, but they have a lot of lines, especially dad. And so every time it's dad, 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 mom, mom, mom. And that was not by accident. This is a point that he's making here, that the story is from the POV of Alex, at least, especially when mom and dad are involved. And to him, they are mom and dad. That's their names. He also uses POV in the script to show us cinematically how this is going to be portrayed in the film. So as you saw earlier with these headings or mini slugs or whatever you want to call them, there were several POVs. There's a lot in the screenplay, probably, I don't know, say more than 10 at least, where we get a specific POV. On page 11 is a good example. It says, she takes a final step and looks through the peephole. POV, empty porch, no one. She moves to the window. POV, nothing, empty porch, empty street. So what he's saying here is that the camera is going to be what she's looking at, most likely a shot scanning, like from a particular person's point of view. And even though we would classify this as mechanical writing, anything in the screenplay that is direction on the page, telling us exactly how it's going to be shot or how it's going to look, I would still describe this as cinematic, because it's giving us some insight of, okay, I can visualize this in my head. For example, on 29, you see here we have the suburban street later, POV. In a car's side mirror, we see Alex walking home. So you can easily visualize that shot. Above it, we have a POV, which is probably the largest paragraph in the whole screenplay, where it's showing us the villain up on the ceiling while she's having a nightmare. I won't go through all of it, but it says POV, a woman looks down at her from above. The ceiling surrounds her waist as if she were in a pool of water. So this is a mechanism that Cregger is using as part of his formatting mechanics and style. We always like to look at the montages in the scripts too to see, I think so far we're up to almost 20 different ways that we've seen formatting for montages. So there's so many ways to do it. He does it again by using these headings. He says montage. We're looking at page 3 and 4 here. Montage, various shots of frantic parents speaking with police in their yards, bedrooms, etc. Then you go down to page 4. Again, it's just in a paragraph. So it's not like listing scenes, listing shots. Is just sort of giving you an idea of what's going to happen. Montage, empty school hallways, empty classrooms, empty playgrounds, empty parking lot. So it's not a shot sheet. It's not like we're going to get these 4 shots. It's just like giving you a flavor. And finally, a look at the white space on the page. Tremendous for this script. Page 28 gives you a pretty good look at it. And it's like this quite a bit. A lot of white space, a lot of reading down the page vertically rather than horizontally. It just goes. It's a quick read because of how it's formatted. And let's take a look at that direction on the page as we do every week. We look at each writer and screenplay and see how they individually choose or choose not to show direction on the page so that you guys can debate it. Here, there's quite a bit. Now, this is a writer-director, obviously, but that doesn't always matter. And we have the family of the we's. There are so many we's in here. It happens 46 times and then many different ways. We've got the we see, obviously. We also have we can, we stay, we follow, we watch, we hear, we are, we hold, we cut, we pan, we clock, we race. No, not race, we rack. We catch, we feel, we recognize, we know, we saw. So a lot of variations from the we family. And the camera is mentioned 15 times in the screenplay specifically. If we take a look at page 2, we see the camera slides to reveal a little boy. And then just below that, the next paragraph says, the camera pushes past Justine toward Alex. Which brings me to my favorite direction on the page in this script is actually this scene right here. Where in the trailer, we see Justine walking into the classroom and there's no children in there. But when you watch the film and you read the script, the big surprise reveal is that there's one kid left. This is Alex. And she's hiding the kid with her bag as she walks into the room. But the script really lays it out nicely of how it's going to look in the film. It says she moves to her desk and drops her bag, and we stay behind her observing the rows and rows of unoccupied desks. It's eerily quiet here after the mayhem of the hall. Then we have more of Maddie's voiceover. That's the little girl. And the camera slides to reveal a little boy, Alex, sitting at a desk that Justine's body was blocking from view. And then the camera pushes past Justine toward Alex. So if you haven't seen it, you can still visualize it here. The camera is following Justine in such a way that her body and her bag are obscuring this child. She stops and the camera keeps going. And as it slides past her, we get an angle on this little boy and then pushes in on him. So it's really beautiful on the film. And it is right here in the script.